Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter with another Frugal Friday video. So we're going to make a drying board today, and this is going to be a drying board for UV resin because I was resin coating some stuff on my old drying board, and I was thinking, well, I wish it was metallic so it could reflect up some of the sun rays on the pieces I was drying or curing under the sun. So what you're going to do is just take some foam core. You need 2 pieces of foam core, can be any size you want. I'm just going to do this small one because I had these scraps, and I usually with UV resin I'm just using smaller pieces. And don't worry, I'll show you some more generic drying boards too for other types of crafts and artwork that you might do. I'm just going to use a little double-sided tape. Doesn't have to be this brand, you could even use glue, it doesn't really matter. You just want to stick these 2 pieces of foam core together. Great use for scraps. Then we're going to take a little bit of aluminum foil. And we are going to wrap it up, shiny side out, because we want to make sure that we're going to get that reflection. I'm sure you could be neater with this, but it doesn't really matter. As long as it's going to sit flat, it doesn't really matter. Okay, there's a nice shiny side. Then what you're going to do is take some sewing pins, and I'm just going to use, I'll use these right here because they're nice and long, and I'm going to push them all the way through. You do not have to be precise here. So basically, wherever there's a pin, that's a point that's going to touch your artwork. So if you're doing a larger board and you're only painting larger things, like maybe you're a toll painter and you want to have something to dry your, you know, sanded wood or things like that on, you could have them further apart. If you're somebody who is working like with smaller pieces, maybe doing ornaments or jewelry, things like that, you'll want them closer together. So, you know, you can do it however you like. And what you're going to do is just fill this board. I'm going to offset mine because I think that will be a little bit easier. The nice thing about having pins long enough that you can push all the way through is that you won't have to, like, they're going to be even. Just keep using the same size pins. And I'm not using rust-proof pins. These are just like your regular sewing pins. So here we are. I put quite a few pins in here because, like I said, this is for UV resin, so I'll tend to do smaller things like jewelry. And it's surprisingly sturdy, and then we've got all these rounded pins on the top that will support my piece of jewelry or whatever I have painted or resin, kind of like, oh, you know, something like this or even something like this. And that way the sunlight can reflect back, or your UV light can reflect back and cure the underside. It'll take a little bit longer, probably with reflected light, but especially when you have a piece like this, it's kind of large. It'll keep it from getting too sticky to handle to flip over and whatnot. You could even probably do it like that and just have minimized the amount of marks that are on the piece as it's curing. So this one's for my UV resin. You could actually do whatever drying you want to on this, but you don't need the foil if you're not doing the resin. This is one I have for doing any sort of like painted a craft or glued craft, anything that I need to just set down and let dry. Again, I did have my pins fairly close together in case I'm doing like small pieces of jewelry, because that tends to be what I do. But if you're doing toll painting, you could definitely spread them out a little bit further. But the more pins you have, the more like rigid it is. And I've been using this for years. I actually I cut off a piece of salvage from some fabric and I used it for this, and I sandwiched it between the 2 layers of foam core. And they're taped together. You can see the back where the pins kind of push to the edge, but it's not sharp or anything. And I just would hang that on my wall and grab it whenever I needed it. So I use this all the time. Another one I made is specifically for paper beads. So what I did here, and this looks really disgusting because it is so old and I've used it so much. I've probably had this for about 10 years. But each of these toothpicks I actually dipped in wax. So like if you have like a Scentsy or one of those wax melters, and the wax is just kind of gone, not smelly anymore, dip your toothpicks in that and then just press it into a piece of styrofoam. Any styrofoams I have, I just save it. I save it from packaging. A lot of times if you order something glass, like a porcelain dish or anything like that, you're going to get this kind of like, it's not a crumbly styrofoam, it's kind of like It's kind of almost a little bit glossy looking. It doesn't flake. You can do that. It doesn't flake off. You know, so just keep your eyes open for whenever you have something like that delivered in this type of styrofoam. Just save the styrofoam. And then if I was going to do a paper bead, I would varnish it, and then I could just drop it on one of these pins to dry. So I spaced these out so I could be able to put paper bead on each of these and they wouldn't touch. So so that worked out. That's worked out really well for me for years. And the final drawing board I want to share with you is one for quilling, and it's super simple. All you need to do is take a piece of foam core, wrap it with waxed paper, and you want to make sure your waxiest side is up. I actually keep these little round pearl end pins on the just right through the edge, just so I always have some there. And then when I'm working on a quilling project, I've got my quilling supplies here. I don't do it very often. I was actually looking for a piece to demonstrate with, but I think I've given away most of my quilling. But I do have a little piece in here that I could do. So when this is obviously completed, but say I was working on something and I needed to let it dry, and you got that center hole, you could poke, you know, one pin through the center hole. Oh, I'll use my outside ones. And then if you're trying to hold the outside paper, you could poke it on the outside and just kind of hold it in place while the glue is drying. And the glue will peel right up off of the wax paper. So that is my quilling board. And I like to use the pearl end pins because I stick them here in the end and they're really easy to pull out. If I had, you could use these, there's no problem with that. But you just wouldn't push them all the way in because it might be hard to pull out if you did that. But there you have it. Those are my drying boards. These I've been using for about 10 years. They are well used, so I mean they look gross, but it just means they've been used. Another thing about this type of styrofoam, you can actually use it as a painting surface because paint doesn't really, your project isn't going to stick to this material. I don't know why, but it works really well for like a non-stick surface. And now I have a new one for my UV resin, which is a craft I've been getting into lately. So I hope you found it useful. Thank you so much for watching, and please give me a thumbs up before you go if you enjoyed these Frugal Friday tips. Have a great day. Until next time, happy crafting.